Hello everyone and welcome to the Anime Exterior. And it's time to get excited. Well, kind of. Let's talk about Dr. Stone, the anime series, episode 1. Now, I really do like the manga, so I was hoping to like this anime as well. However, there are a few things that don't quite sit right with me in this episode, so then let's talk about them. So then, we start the episode off learning about how the world within the series got to the way it is, so its current state of affairs. And the world is now full of people who have been turned to stone. Basically, a big green light engulfed the entire planet, and then people started to stonalize. If that's really a word. Well, if not, I'm sure Senku, our main protagonist, would 1,000,000,000% correct me later on in future episodes. So basically, we get a scene where we see people just having a normal life, living their life as they are, when suddenly the light engulfs the planet and they start turning to stone. Now, this is pretty gruesome, I'm not going to lie, simply because these people, for the most part, at the beginning, are still conscious while they're trapped in a stone shell. Like, we hear people crying out saying, "Mummy, Daddy, help me," and getting all sort of sad and scared, like you would do if you started turning into stone. And even people that were like in aeroplanes, pilots, obviously if they're turned to stone, the plane's going to crash somewhere, causing a lot of people to break. Because, well, stones break. If you've gone to any museum, you'll see a statue of someone famous. They all look the same, pretty much, so I can excuse the anime for that. But, you know, they're all broken to some extent. And, you know, we actually see this, and when you mix that in with the revelation of people still having consciousness, like, for example, that woman who was crying out for her parents, Senku, who was literally counting the days or minutes or seconds that were going past. Like, okay, fine. Some anime logic there, I suppose. And then obviously Taiji in this episode, he stayed consciousness because he wanted to confess his feelings. And he hadn't done so yet. But yeah, the real cause for this and the way that people turned to stone is still unclear. All we know is that the big light came and people got turned to stone. So I'm interested to find out how that actually came about. Maybe we'll find out later on. So let's talk about the characters that we're introduced to in this episode. So to start off then, our main protagonist, Senku. Basically, he loves science and he seems like a really smart character. He even creates gasoline out of plastic bottles and caps. And you know, once he broke free from his stone imprisonment, he managed to survive on his own for 6 months, just with the basic essentials. As main characters go, he's not really the strongest in terms of physical ability. So if you think of people like Goku or Saitama, you know, they're all pretty strong and well-rounded. But they're not very smart. And this is where Senku has a one-up on those type of characters. Because where he's not very strong, he's quite smart. He's one of the smartest people within the Dr. Stone series. Appearance-wise, I do actually like his appearance. His design is nicely done. I like the fact that his outfit does say E equals MC squared, because it's technically a science joke, and, well, you know, his character is based on science. The only thing about his personality that I don't really like is probably his hairstyle. I find it very tall, and it reminds me too much of onions. I'm not gonna lie, that's all I can think of when I see his hair. But his design is unique, so I'll give him a pass on that, and hopefully, you know, I don't know, he gets a haircut or something. Now, another thing I do find hard to like about Senku is his personality in this episode, especially towards Taiji. Taiji is his friend, but he seems very arrogant and treats him like he's beneath, you know, himself. So Senku seems to think he's superior, thanks to his superior knowledge. And he comes across, as arrogant and undermining, and even calling Taiju a big oaf all the time. So hopefully, with his personality trait, I'm hoping that it's only directed towards his friend Taiju, and when we see Senku basically interact with other people, then he might come across differently. But for now, he seems way too villainous to be like, a main character from a shonen manga. I'm not gonna lie, I do get the villain vibe, and the voice acting is good, but I'm not quite sure if it fits Senku as a character overall. So hopefully within the upcoming episodes, it proves me wrong. I really am hoping. So then, we'll go on to Taiju. This character is madly in love with another character called Uehara. And thanks to this, he manages to survive being trapped in his stone shell. And bearing in mind, these characters were trapped for 3,700 years. This is because he never got to confess his feelings towards her. To Uehara, that is. He's kind of goofy and has mad stamina, along with a lot of physical manpower. Basically, he's quite strong. He's a man horse, basically. And where I said that Senku lacks the physical attributes, but makes up for it in the smarts, Taiju's the complete opposite. He lacks in the smarts department. He even explains that and states that many times over. And he basically makes up for it in bulk in the physicality department. So, once Taiju basically awakens and breaks out of his shell, him and Senku become a very good combination, with Taiju being the manpower and Senku being the brains. Okay, design-wise, it's quite simple, and it fits his character quite nicely. I do love the fact, though, that he got a beard halfway through. I love it, and I wish he kept that design. But, it led to a bit of comedy of him trying to shave with clams, and getting a bad face with it. Whatever. So, let's talk about the third character that we get introduced to, Uehara. Now, not a lot is known about this character yet, because we only see her for a brief time, and for the most part of this episode, she is in her stone shell. But she seems like a nice enough person, and shares similar goofy traits with Taiju. Like, for example, she takes a fake bird that's encased in stone, which is a possible fake bird. It could be one of the ones that Senku was experimenting on, to the vets, much like Taiju does. She tries to kind of state, oh, you do realise that's not really a real bird, and, not put Taiju down, but kind of play with him a little bit, even though she does the same thing herself. So she seems quite playful, quite jolly, and all round a nice enough person. So hopefully we get to see a lot more from her character in the upcoming episodes. I like her design as well. Her design is quite nice for a female character. And again, I just wish we can learn a bit more about her character and see how she progresses within the story. Find out what her good qualities are. So then, those are the characters that we're introduced to. Now, let's talk a little bit about the story of this episode. So once Taiju and Senku reunite, after the world has turned to stone, they try to discover what led them to break free from their shells. And it turns out that it was mostly thanks to a liquid known as nitric acid. So the idea of adding alcohol springs to mind, because nitric acid on its own doesn't work to basically release a bird from stone imprisonment. So they try to add alcohol, and this would help as there's ethanol in alcohol. And from the alcohol, so you got ethanol plus nitric acid, which gives you nettle, which is basically a strengthened etching agent. So they're trying to bank on that, basically helping them out in order to break the stone casing around them. Because in the cave where Taiju basically awakens, they've got a dripping tap of nitric acid, basically. So how will they get the ethanol? Well, they find some berries, and they try to make wine. This is a long, slow, steady progress. And much like science, because Senku explains that science is like that, it's all trial and error. It takes 1 year for him to make, but by the end of the episode, we see that a bird that's encased in stone gets released and flies into the open world. So we finally have a basically solution to it. Now, it's not clear to us by the end of this episode whether or not it's mass production or, they could do it all the time. Bearing in mind, it did take them a year, so they're probably not going to be able to do it very often. They're going to have to be able to do it a little tiny bit at a time, because creating alcohol is a slow process. Now, a couple of other things that I didn't like about this episode was the fact that character placement. Now, I understand 3,700 years is a very long time. Don't get me wrong, I understand that perfectly. But when we see Taiji basically turning into stone, he's standing I don't know, not even that far. Basically a car's width away from Uehara. And when he wakes up, he's in a cave. Where'd that cave come from? I don't know. How did Body get there? I don't know. But it seems to be the fact that Uehara stayed by the tree. And that's what kind of stopped her from breaking. But then she's I don't really know exactly, but they seem to make it it's a very long distance away from where Taiji wakes up. I don't know, character placement just kind of seemed really weird and off to me. I know basically the tonic plates can kind of move and expand and everything else. I just found it really bizarre and odd. And where did Senku wake up to? He was in a school building and there was no school around anywhere. So, yeah, that's probably one gripe that I have. They just didn't explain that very well. But overall, the animation was actually really nice. I really did like it. It was clear, crisp, clean. Nothing seemed really out of place. Voice acting wise, again, I like Taiju's voice. I like Uehara's voice. Not so keen on Senku's. I'm going to have to give it the 3-episode rule and see how it goes. As first episodes go, it was an okay episode. It introduced us to a problem and then gave us the solution. I feel like this series might do that quite a lot though, especially if they follow the manga where they have a goal they want to achieve. Kind of similar to We Never Learn. Obviously they focus on single stories from a character's point of view. They might focus on obtaining a certain item in Dr. Stone based on a scientific point of view. So, yeah. If that's the direction they go, then it might be interesting. We'll have to wait and see. So overall, if you want to give this series a try, go ahead. It's a pretty good episode to begin with, and, well, I want to know more to see what happens. I'm going to end the review there, guys, because it's, really all I can say about the episode without spoiling too much. So, if you've enjoyed, smash that like button. If you want to join me for this journey through the world of Dr. Stone, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Or if you want to know more content anime related, then again, subscribe to the Anime Exterior so you never miss a video from me. And until next time, I hope you have an amazing day. Comment your thoughts down below. And, well, keep it anime. With the Anime Exterior, I suppose. Catch you later. Goodbye.